Equality is enshrined in national and international agendas. The United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda commits to leave no one behind, while the International Labour Organisation's aim of decent work for all embraces a similar ethos. The UN Universal Declaration of Rights begins pretty unequivocally: all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Despite that, in 2017, when nobody disputes that not many dispute those points, no one disputes the fact that real inequality exists, that the problem grows worse, not better, in many nations, and that it poses a fundamental threat to humanity. The projections don't look encouraging. I was disturbed to read, for example, the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos recently has significantly downgraded its projections for reaching global gender equality. On current estimates, it would be achieved worldwide in 2186, a mere 170 years from now. 2 years ago, the same forecast estimated that gender parity could be reached in 2095. So things in that context are getting worse, not better. And the challenge is becoming greater, and it demands solutions urgently. And that's what our grand challenge is about. We can't solve all the problems of global humanity, but we can contribute. And there are many kinds of inequality: economic, social, cultural, gender and sexuality, and inequalities based on race, nationality, religion and disability. Each of them's a problem, but it's even worse than that, because, as I suspect you were discussing this morning, each often coexists with others, so that the confluence of numerous inequalities becomes a danger to established societies. And these are the challenges we face, and like climate change and refugees and migration, they're not by any means confined to poor nations or to nations without the means to make a difference. Most income inequality in the world is actually reflected in differences between countries rather than within them. Although the gaps between rich and poor, even in wealthy nations like the United States, appear vast and are growing wider. But in reality, a poor American has a higher annual income, around $5,000, than a rich individual in a poor country like Niger in Africa. The head of the World Economic Forum asked rather grimly in Davos, would you rather be rich in a poor country or poor in a rich country? And that, of course, is not a choice that anyone should be forced to make, and we should all have the right to live in our own countries, the opportunity to gain employment and to live as equals. Achieving that will require extraordinary and outstanding leadership in the face of many global issues, rising levels of conflict, social and political division, which challenges many of the gains made in the past 50 years and many of the assumptions that we all here would hold. The Brexit vote and the US election outcome were expressions not only of dissatisfaction with ruling elites, but of growing levels of social and economic inequality, even in relatively rich countries. People feel both excluded and disempowered and left behind, and their frustrations are clearly rising. Just a few days ago, the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, blamed corporate and government leaders for the anger rocking politics globally. He warned that low wages and the shift to precarious part-time work were threatening societies, and rising inequality was making citizens distrustful of their governments. He said it was time for political and business leaders to step up and address inequality. These are pretty massive issues. What role can universities like UNSW play? And can universities like ours realistically make a difference given the enormous scale of this sort of problem? As a leading university which aims and really means, I believe, to be a servant of society, We have a duty to help tackle these challenges, to create a public platform for debates and a showcase for research, to be a source of information and expertise, and to provoke and challenge the status quo. We need to open the widest possible door to the world so that everything that we do has both social value and global impact. And that will be the hallmark of a forward-looking 21st century university. And the battle for equity, for equality, sits at the very heart of that. All three pillars of our strategy, academic excellence, social engagement, and global impact, have a role to play in addressing at least some of these inequities. On growing income and wealth inequality, on addressing technology-related jobs and job displacement, by promoting equal opportunity and participation in education, in employment, in society, in business, in leadership, on our campus in Australia and globally, regardless of gender, ethnic origin, race, religion, or other backgrounds. The UNSW Grand Challenge on Inequality will address many of those issues in the context of the uncertainties of 2017 and beyond. I'm grateful to all of you for being here at this launch. I thank Professor Ros Dixon and Professor Richard Holden for their leadership of the Grand Challenge and the energy and commitment that they're putting into it. I thank everyone associated with this project, and I look forward to hearing of progress in this important area. I wish you well in your discussions today, and I wish you well not just because of the importance of this for UNSW, but because this really, really is one of the burning issues of our time, and it's so, so important that our university, with all the resources, all the expertise, all the opportunities we have, that we make a really serious contribution to tackling it. Thank you.